I've always had a desperation for human connections because the place in which I grew up lacked basically any of them, because the house I had lived in was with people who barely ever paid attention to me as a kid just because they were going through their own issues, and when they did, oftentimes the attention I received was very negative, and it caused me to act out, it caused me to isolate myself, and all these other things. So I had always wanted some kind of friend. I had always wanted somebody who I could talk to and feel some sort of connection with, although over time I just kind of didn't care. Like, interacting with people was something that I didn't really think about over time, just because I got so used to being isolated and being without connections that I wanted someone to understand me, and I wanted someone to be there and really get where I was coming from and be someone who I had a close relationship with. For a while, over time, I just didn't care. That desire didn't come back until when I got in school and I was misunderstood by people, and I did start being dishonest about who I was in order to avoid misunderstanding. But other than that, in the time I was isolated as a homeschooler, before I turned 12 and a half and went into school, I just basically didn't care. But having a relationship, having a girlfriend or boyfriend, those have always been things that have been on my mind for quite a bit. Excuse me, more so when I would say turned about, 12, 13, around that time. It would just be something I constantly thought about. One, for the sexual aspect, and two, just to have someone who understood me on that deep enough level and just wanted to spend time with me and ascribed the label of BF or GF to themselves. Because the thing is that label, in my mind, like many other labels, carries a lot of weight. When you say, I am this person's boyfriend or I am this person's girlfriend, it is signifying that you have given a large portion of dedication to that person, and the fact that that dedication is there, whether that dedication, be just casual dating or whatnot, the fact is that there is a societal expectation and judgment put upon you when you say that you are willing to dedicate yourself to that person in a way that is different than the way friends dedicate themselves to that person. And thus, there is a meaning to that, and that meaning is more rare than those you would find in friendships, because it is something that happens less often. And so, that word, boyfriend or girlfriend, and the fact that you have that, has always meant a lot to me. Not just for that reason, but also for the status of it. You can say, oh, haha, I'm a Chad, LMAO. I've cared less about the status nowadays just because I don't fucking care, but for a while the status was something I really cared about. But it's that human connection, right? It's that person who has a willingness to care for you and really does think you're a cool person. Acceptance. That's what I wanted, was acceptance, a very close and intimate form of acceptance. The kind of acceptance that allows you to come up and embrace someone with your arms, the kind of acceptance that allows you to kiss someone on the lips, a very gross and odd thing to do. You're literally taking these wet these wet things and slamming them against someone else's wet things. It's a body part. Why would you do that? Ugh. That's such an odd thing to do, and when you look at the way society looks at it, they're like, yeah, I wouldn't do that with my best friend, LMAO. So there's a level of embracing the other person that you don't find every day, and that acceptance, that love that is there, for lack of a better word, is something that I've always had a reverence for. And it's something that, as someone who hasn't really been accepted in that way basically my entire life, it's something that I clawed after, because it would give me a, not necessarily, I wanted it to give me a sense of purpose for a while. I wanted it to give me something to really hold on for in life, but I've realized I have to find that in myself. I've realized that I have to make myself feel that, I have a purpose, not just find purpose in someone else, because relationships are never permanent, and so if you put your entire purpose in one person, it'll just fall apart and crumble even harder. So that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. What I'm more so looking for, nowadays at least, is acceptance from others, is a comforting, warm embrace from others, That is what a relationship would mean to me. It's not something that you find purpose in for life, because if you do that, then you are rushing in a relationship too early, and I think that was kind of what I did with the last one. Even though I respected the experimentation aspect of that relationship, the fact is that one of the reasons why it had ended was because I was not in a good place mentally to be in a relationship in the first place. I was not someone who felt that they had a clear purpose in life, and so as a result of that, I was letting my purpose be that person, and so it just ended, because that's not healthy. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't rely on, the outcome being good when what you're doing is solely relying on one entity. You have to diversify. You have to rely on multiple, as they do in business, you have to have multiple sources of income. And in this case, when it comes to your life, you have to have multiple sources of purpose. When you rely on one that could easily die out, then you end up getting disappointed in the long run. There's a high risk involved in that. And the risk oftentimes isn't worth taking, because the likelihood of you guys staying together is very unlikely. Even if you feel like it at the time, ultimately relationships are almost never permanent. It's extremely rare that they are. So think about that. Like, the reason why most older relationships are permanent is because the people don't even really like them that much, and it was just a societal expectation to stay together when you're married. That's why most old couples are together. Yeah, there are some who do really love each other and do well, but those are even more rare. So think about that. Think about that, and think about the lack of permanence in those things. You can't make your goal, you can't make your purpose that person, because then it could die out. You have to be careful. You have to tread lightly. And my interest in such things has always been very singular. It's always been, I want purpose, I want acceptance, I want all these other things. And I had an unhealthy relationship with it for the longest time, because whenever I would get rejection, when I would seek others, I would react very badly to it. When I was in school, there's a perfect example of this. There's a girl who, I will not name her name just because of doxing purposes, I don't want to, but in 7th grade, I was completely infatuated with the idea of dating her. Not necessarily because I found her insanely physically attractive or anything like that. I just wanted to date her because I enjoyed her as a person, and I wanted that form of love and acceptance and intimacy to come from her. And so I spent like the majority of that year just being completely obsessed with her. And at one point, she actually said she was interested in me. She was going to break up with her boyfriend at the time. She told me on the bus, okay, I have a crush on 2 people. I have a crush on you, and I have a crush on my boyfriend. And she was probably going to break up with him soon and get with me. She did break up with him eventually, but she got with someone else. And I spent like that entire year just metagaming myself and my interactions with her, because I would try to be funny, I would try to be charismatic. What I did was I observed each thing that I noticed she liked, right? I observed the traits in other guys that she had dated that she spent a long time with. I observed the things she would laugh at and react well to, and I did those things. And I would just constantly be in this mindset of, how can I make her happy? How can I make me appealing? And so I did that. The thing where I fucked up, though, was I got kind of depressed at the time. I was looking for some form of attention, and so I used my friend Will, I will dock this person, I used his vapor cigarette on the bus, and I was just puffing on it because it had nicotine, and I wanted the nicotine from it. I was just puffing on this vapor, and I call out her name. I tell her to look at me, and I take out the vapor cigarette, and I just blow it in her general direction on the bus. This was something that I kind of knew she would react badly to, and I knew that it would upset her in some capacity. After I made all this progress, after she told me she liked me, and I had a chance of dating her, I had a chance of getting what I finally wanted, I did something that I knew would mess it all up. And it did. She told me the next day that, or not really the next day, later on the bus she kind of left some hints as to what was going on. She wouldn't really talk to me, and then the next day she had talked about wanting to tell the guidance counselor because she saw this as an addiction. I needed to get help, and so her attraction to me was basically completely gone at that point because, oh, this person has problems, drugs, she was completely scared of drugs at the time, so I knew that. Just like how I knew all the stuff she liked, if I did that, she was going to respond well to it. Well, I did the bad thing that she didn't like, and she responded badly to it, of course. I fucking knew. But I did it anyway. And I didn't really know why I did it at the time. There was no clear thought process. I just simply knew I was doing something she didn't like, and I knew I was not going to get what I wanted. Maybe it was a form of self-harm. Maybe it was me trying to destroy a goal of mine. I have no idea. But either way, I knew it was going to cause me immense pain, and it did. The next week or so, I just felt so terrible and suicidal, and every day that I came to school, I came angry. I could barely focus on my studies because of that, and I had immense drama with friends over that. Everything was just terrible, and that year in particular was really bad because I was getting in a lot of fights, and I was just having so many issues with the other kids, and I was so fucking bored and depressed, and so it wasn't the best. I have, to this day, I don't really know why I did that. I just know that I did. It's a really stupid thing. Again, I think it was just self-destructive behavior. Like, I have a tendency of doing that in relationships a lot of the time, is I'll just do things that destroy the things that I care about. I'll do things that destroy the things that I want, and that is a mark of my own mental problems. And as much as I would love to have someone that I can truly embrace, that can embrace me, I need to solve those issues that I have with destroying the things that I love before I can love someone else again. So I need to look at that. I need to fix that, There was a reason why my ex broke up with me. It wasn't out of the blue. It's because my soul, my fucking soul had gotten corrupted in a sense, bad parts of me that I hadn't really shown before were coming out, and so of course he lost interest in me. So, yeah, I don't blame him for doing what he did. It was what he needed to do for him and all that. I don't blame him for it, but, it's one of those things where I have these self-destructive behaviors towards things I want sometimes, and it's not good for relationships. The next year, in 8th grade, I didn't go to school at all, and so that year I was just completely enamored by the idea of having a fan who was interested in me romantically, because I saw all these different YouTubers, and I saw how popular they would get, and I was just completely enamored by that idea that someone would just be a fan of my content and then would be interested in me romantically as a result. I didn't really know any other way to forge a connection like that because I was like completely socially autistic and I didn't really find myself physically attractive. There was no one around me who felt that way, and so I thought, well, the only way I'm gonna find someone who understands my culture and understands my autism is to search on the internet in a similar place to the place I'm in. You know, as they always say, people who are similar to one another inevitably find each other in the same place. That's how I met all my friends who understand my culture, because they're of the same culture, and so they propagate one another in the same place. Or not propagate, they walk around, whatever. You know what I fucking mean. That was a misuse of that word, but whatever. You know, they show up. So, in any case, I saw this as like a girlfriend or a boyfriend is gonna show up around here. Eventually they'll like my content, and so as a result they'll like my personality, and then, you know, they would find out like that, you know? I think the problem was is that I was searching at all. Like, if you sit there and you're just desperate and you want to find somebody else, then you're going to find people who are the same way. You have to sit there and you have to work on yourself for a good enough amount of time. You have to get out of your comfort zone and not try to find people who are in the exact same place as you. You know, you have to work on yourself until you're at a point where, you know, you can meet people who are different, and then they can embody strengths that are different than yours, and you can embody strengths that are different than theirs, and then you can work on, you know, your weaknesses through that, you know? It's just a process, and it's one that you have to work hard to get through, but it's not one that you should be totally upset about, because there are other things to look forward to other than that.